We've qualified for the World Cup. Go and compete.
Well, welcome. Just myself and yourself today, Adrian, which I understand is probably tricky for first-time listeners to say yourself and myself.
Start that again. Start that. Cut that. Right. Okay. Maybe we won't do a welcome because welcomes are a bit. Yeah. So.
Well, in light of Monday's Valentine's Day, it's just the two of us. Just the two of us.
Lovely.
And we've got a fun-packed podcast.
Oh, great job.
To kick us off.
Great job.
Yes, that was nice, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. You should be on Sky. I swear to God.
I should. Such as Sky News this morning, and they really lowered the bar. So, I could be. You know?
Yeah. No, it's desperate. I mean, that ginger guy is chronic altogether. Yes. He's just some posh guy. He's just some posh ginger guy who got a job.
He's what I dislike a lot. He's clearly from like London or the south of England, but he's a very proud Man United fan, and yeah, just doesn't sit well with me, as you know, and anyone that listens.
Yeah, he kind of got big during COVID when it was a lot of Zoom calls and stuff, and it just has the feeling of you're just some guy in your sitting room interviewing Gary Neville. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. I don't like him at all. I don't know his name. Actually, I would say I don't know any of the presenters' names. But the main guy, do you know the main guy on Sky Sports? He'd be the one on like Monday Night Football and stuff. I think his name is Dave something.
Yeah.
I actually think he's very good.
I think he's a great host. Yeah.
Yeah. He's underrated. Him and Kelly the two blonde girls. There's like two blonde girls that do it in Liverpool class as well. Anyway,
yeah,
I digress.
It's true. It's very difficult to like get the answers out of your guests or the people that are with you without basically guiding them to what you want answered. And I think that Dave guy, does that well. And it's hard to do.
It's not all about him, which I think is a good quality in a presenter, really, isn't it? Make it about the guest, not you.
That's it. Trait I do not have.
No, not at all. Speaking of traits you don't have, who do you fancy in the Super Bowl?
Yay. Nice. Thanks, Adrian. I didn't even need to segue that.
Was that any good?
That was brilliant. Yeah, that was Sky Sports socials-esque. You know, that was like my Saturday morning TV.
Yeah, I hope they're listening.
Yeah, me too. I hope someone is. No, the Super Bowl, yes. I am a big fan of American football, strangely. I think back fondly to, God, I don't know what year it would have been. But remember we went to the Old Oak and we watched a bit of American football one evening?
I do.
Years back.
Yeah.
That's probably your first and only time watching American football, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen much of it. I do understand it, which is probably 90% of enjoying it, but it's just the breaks and stuff are just too much for me.
Yeah. Most people will watch the Super Bowl too, which is basically like the equivalent of the final, the World Cup final or whatever. But the way it's set up is that it's just a spectacle. It's an event. So like the game is obviously extremely important to fans and the NFL and American football, but a lot of people, like the general public, watch it for like the commercials, the adverts, and the halftime show. Obviously, that's a huge thing. There's been lots of famous moments from the halftime show over the past few years, like Janet Jackson's tits, I guess, being a very notable one.
Yep.
Remember that? Thinking back on that, she was like victimized for that, but she didn't do anything.
No, I guess she didn't.
She seriously didn't.
Well, the whole thing was a bit bizarre, but it was I think it was probably the first time. I think it kicked off the big Super Bowl halftime show, because I know it was a thing before then, but that was like the first time that it was like, whoa, this big thing happened, and it was like, what's going to happen next year? What's going to happen next year? And it's
Yeah.
kind of slowly petered down to people not giving a shit again.
Hmm.
But that, yeah,
Yeah, I
that,
think.
that that was probably the first big thing. Do you know?
Yeah.
So who's in the Super Bowl this year?
So it's the LA Rams against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals would be like the equivalent of when Leicester won the league. Like they haven't featured at all
They're
in
shit.
like
Yeah.
40, 50 years. Yeah,
Mhm.
basically. Yeah.
Okay, so by the time this comes out, everyone will know who won. But
Mm.
how long is the season? The NFL season, because it seems like it's only about 4 months or something, is it?
Yeah, it's pretty quick. Yeah. Yeah. It's God, they changed it this year, so I'm probably wrong, but it's 17 or 18 game weeks. That's like the regular season. And
Jesus.
then then it's like the top 8 from each division go into a playoff thing, and then there's only like 3 games to the Super Bowl and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems crazy that like a shit team like the Bengals can get into the Super Bowl. Like it's like a bit of a fluke, but it feels like that every year, that there's always a team that's like, Jesus, how did they make it? But
Yeah.
I don't follow it. But it does seem like it's always the fucking Patriots versus shit team.
Yeah, it's true.
You know,
It is
or,
very true.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the way, like, it's the one thing that I think stands in favor of American sports over the kind of model we have in Europe and well everywhere else basically, is that they have a somewhat league format which then goes into a knockout format, which most leagues don't do in Europe, obviously. But they have the player draft each season, which rewards being shit. Basically, of the 32 teams, if you lose the most games or if you've just had the worst season and you finished last, you get the first pick of like the best talent of 2022. So that's basically what's happened with the Bengals for the past couple of years, and a lot of other teams too, but they haven't done it as well. So this team like the Bengals, so basically Leicester, have had the next Messi at their disposal for like 2 or 3 years, and then they've blossomed into like fantastic athletes that are now a fantastic team. But if they win it, they'll have like the 32nd pick of the 2022 class. So it's
Right.
a constant balance. Yeah.
And how is it that then, like Tom Brady, how is he not drafted every single year? Like, does a player have to be put up to be drafted, or what?
Yeah, you have to declare. They play through college, or you don't have to play for a team, but like you have to declare for it. And there's hundreds and hundreds of players to choose from. Like obviously the US is humongous in terms of population, but there's hundreds of players to pick from. And it's interesting that you say Tom Brady, because he is like the Messi of American football in recent times. He was drafted in the 6th round. So basically, what's 6 times 30? So basically, like 200 other players were picked before him, and no one really thought that he was going to amount to anything. But he just became like a sensational talent. So that happens too. That a lot of like positions, you got to think like a football pitch. Everyone's going to go for the striker or the class attacking midfielder, but then like the left or the right back might be a little bit unfavorable, and they're not going to get picked up first, and it leaves like a really big pool of very good players that if you need a good left back, you'll get one. But how that transpired, I guess, is that no one really predicted that Tom Brady would be as good as he was. Like he's got the physique is all wrong for being a quarterback. He's not very nimble and stuff. And they just had a really good board and a really good manager that just time and again found talent whilst having like the worst picks and trading and things like that they could maintain it. But it really helped by just always having like Messi in your team. You still do pretty well every year, right, with Messi.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what Barcelona did, I suppose.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I haven't really kept track of. I know people go fucking Super Bowl crazy at this time of year, but I just don't fancy staying up till 4 in the morning. frankly.
But that's the thing. That's the thing is that it's really unfortunate this year is that it's in LA, which is where the Rams are from. It's in their stadium, but they're the away team. Funny enough, and yeah, kickoff is at 11:30 Irish time. So it's gonna be a
Yeah,
long.
it'll be at least what 3.5 hours, something like that, more.
Yeah, the halftime is like 40 minutes because of the performance. Yeah, so it's Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, a few others. So yeah, can't wait.
Yeah,
Moving
unreal.
on to the round ball, the NBA. Nah. it's been a moment since we've recorded last, and a lot has happened. Like the January transfer window closed, and for the first time, and I think for a good while, it was actually entertaining. Januaries have been pretty poor over the past few years, especially when Sky Sports tried to make a big deal out of it. But I actually thought this one was pretty impactful, pretty entertaining, and will have a lot of, have a big impact on the league.
Yeah, some big signings, but I think a couple of big signings always feels like more happened than nothing. Like uh, Luis Diaz was obviously probably one of the bigger ones. Coutinho coming in was a big one. Spurs did a couple of deals like a little bit under the radar, but probably yet to see anything much coming from that. But like, I don't think Chelsea got anyone. I don't think City got anyone. Man United didn't get anyone. So like, a lot of the big teams really didn't do anything. Newcastle were probably the biggest. And I don't know, when they did the deals at the time, I kind of felt like it wasn't really enough to keep them up because they've been so terrible. But they've got their 2 on the bounce now, 2 wins on the bounce. So
Yeah,
and it's all Kieran Trippier. Who would have thunk it?
I know, right? We were kind of sniggering, I guess, weren't we, when Newcastle signed him? It's pretty mediocre, let's be honest.
Yeah, all their signings were. I mean, Chris Wood. All
Yep.
these guys. The guy from Leon, I don't even know his name. He didn't even start today. So a couple of above average signings, I would say, for way above average fees. But like that's just what they got to do. I mean, it's what City did when they first got money, so
Kind of true.
they're on
True, right? I
the
think
right track.
we might actually look back at the end of the season and say, well, they weren't glamorous, just because they're the wealthiest club. They weren't going to attract anyone really in the predicament they're in. But it seems to have done the job. Even oh God, I'm going to forget his name. Webster, was it, from Brighton that they signed? Is that his name? Or Byrne? Sorry,
Burn, the big guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know? Again, a really kind of pushing for promotion, championship signing, or a relegation scrap signing, but it's what they needed, I guess.
Yeah. But it's funny that they get in someone like Chris Wood and then Burnley go off and get your man Veghorst or however you say his name, the big lad. He would have been a much better signing. He's unbelievable, and Chris Wood is just kind of meh.
It's true. Do you remember that guy, the Veghorst or Weghorst guy? Do you remember him from a FIFA save we had?
Oh no,
No.
no.
It was the Wolfsburg one that we had, and we sold him immediately because we looked at his acceleration and his height and fucked him up.
He's 6'6". His acceleration is
Yeah.
like 16. Like,
It's everything we hate.
Well, he's great. He's fucking good. He was good against Liverpool, and he was very good against Man United. So
Yeah.
he's exactly what they need. And Chris Wood is laughable, I'm afraid. He doesn't even seem to be fitting into a mediocre Newcastle side.
Well, I have a theory. That Newcastle are relying on statistics their signings outside of Trippier, which is probably their glamorous signing. That's the big name that they could attract. I think they're relying on things like XG and like goal involvement or potential goal involvement, because there's like a kind of a running joke on like some of the fantasy football YouTube channels and Twitter and stuff that Chris Wood is like the best striker ever if you don't include him scoring. He's always like
Right.
in the right areas. He's always like his success rate for like passes and shot conversions and headers and all things like that are like extremely high, like top tier. He just doesn't find the net. So I just have this have this theory that someone has stumbled upon this and been like, we have to pay 25 million for this. When he
But
does find the net,
surely that makes him the worst striker ever. Like if he's in the right place at the right time all the time and doesn't score, that makes him a terrible, terrible footballer. Like you could
yeah,
put me right on
does.
the 6-yard box and hit the ball to me every time. And if I'm only scoring twice every 30 games, that makes me pretty shit. So
does.
yeah, that's
But
not.
if you get one thing he's never had really is consistent service or a better player playing alongside him. And I think that's
Yeah.
probably the logic, is that if they get, well, Wilson's crux,
Yeah,
but
but
someone like
San
Sam
Maximan.
Maximan,
Yeah.
yeah, is that if they can, like he's a trickster. He can get his way around the box and he can loop balls in and whatnot. So that I think that's the theory, but we will see. We will see.
Yeah, I mean we're only about 3 games into his Newcastle career, but he's yet to really even he's yet to score. He's yet to even really impose himself on a game. So we'll find
Chris
out.
Wood, like no one should be paying 25 million for Wood.
No, very well. Well done. Well
Yeah,
done. Very
thank you,
nice.
thank you.
Very nice.
Villa probably had the best window though, right? Coutinho and Coutinho. I think Coutinho kind of went out under the radar too because it was so early in the window. But those are two solid pickups.
Yeah, Steven Gerrard, best manager in the league, maybe not. Yeah, he's gotten a couple of good pickups there. I mean, look, Everton shit the bed with just everything. I mean, letting go one of their best players in Digne because he didn't get on with Benitez, and then Benitez fucking off a week later.
Yeah.
Catastrophic stuff. But he's a good pickup. He's probably overrated, I would say. Digne. I mean, he's at Villa, and that's probably his level. He's one of the better players at Villa, and that's probably where he belongs. So he's a good pickup. Coutinho is, oh man, I love Coutinho. I fucking love Coutinho. And I don't know what other Liverpool fans think about him because, he left Barcelona, but Christ, he is a fucking unbelievable player. I don't know what age he is. He's about 29, 28, 29 now. So he's coming, he's either peaking or coming towards the end of it. But yeah, Christ, I mean, he should be picked up by, with all respect, a better team than Villa next year. He really should. I mean, he's just wasting away in Barcelona. I'm sure it's all to do with family stuff and living in Barcelona and all that shit. But like, he belongs in England. He thrives in the Premier League for whatever reason. He just fucking suits it, and always has. So, yeah, I mean, if he's at Barcelona next year, his career is over as far as I'm concerned. But Jesus, I mean, I don't know if I'd have him back at Liverpool necessarily because I think he needs to be the main man, and Liverpool actually improved once he left. But I mean, someone like Leicester, I don't know, like a really fifth place team, someone like that. Fucking Arsenal, actually. All due respect to Arsenal, Arsenal should snap the fuck up Coutinho. Yeah. Fuck Odegaard.
It's interesting. I do think that the Steven Gerrard pull is probably the reason why he signed for Villa because it is really out there. No disrespect to Villa, but they're not really a team to like pull players from Barcelona, even though they're maybe not in the starting 11.
They should be in the league. They shouldn't be in the league because of that fucking ghost goal last season. Was it last season? Yeah,
That's true. Sheffield United got done over. Sheffield United got done over twice for things like that. They got relegated with the whole. I think we spoke about this already, but they got relegated in the year that West Ham had Tevez and Mascherano illegally. And then this goal goes in, and VAR decides that day it wasn't going to work. I don't know.
Yeah.
And now they're stuck with fucking Brewster in the championship. Oh dear,
Ooh, yeah.
it's
The
rough.
less said about that, the better. But 20 million, thank you very much.
Well, we spoke about like Everton shitting the bed with Coutinho going to Villa, and I agree with you. I think he is probably just like a decent left back. It's just a really good signing. And Everton's stupid for letting him go, but I don't think it was the club necessarily. I think it was, Rafa Benitez just sabotaging his way out. But I think Everton shit the bed this transfer window too, with the exception of Frank Lampard. Dele Alli for 42 million. Crazy.
Is that the worst bit of business we've ever seen?
That's a crazy bit of business.
Crazy bit of business. The guy couldn't get a game with Spurs, and okay, Spurs are a big team. The guy hadn't played an actual decent game of football in 4 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I remember him playing well was against Chelsea. He scored 2 headers against Chelsea about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I could be corrected. It might be only 3 years ago, but that's it. He's not worth 10 million in my estimation. So 42 million is, look, it's amazing business by Spurs. But fucking hell. And Van de Beek.
Van de Beek, yeah. I mean, that one is understandable, right? That's a loan deal.
It's better.
Cool.
It's certainly better, but it's not game changing. I mean, I look at Everton like what do Everton need? They probably need a pretty big overhaul in midfield, I would have thought.
Yeah.
They don't have a good midfield. Defensively, they probably need one or two to come in. But definitely midfield is their weakest spot, and they're bringing in Dele Alli and Van de Beek, who are not really solid midfield players. So I don't know.
No, there's a big risk. It's a big question mark over Dele Alli, and I think back to that clip from the Amazon Spurs, documentary thing, where Mourinho's just like, he gives a big analogy or a big kind of like motivational thing to him, but he's basically telling Dele Alli, if you put in any effort every day, you'd be one of the best in the world, but you're just not asked. And I think that summarizes him very well. Anytime I see Dele Alli, he is either just, going 110% crazy, not for a while now, but when he was like starting properly, it was either an incredible performance or you didn't know he was playing. And to risk that amount of money.
Yeah.
Well, Everton, I mean, it's their cash.
Yeah, and he peaked at about 20. That's the issue.
Yeah.
He peaked with that fucking volley against Palace.
Yeah.
And
Knew it would get mentioned.
Since then, he's just been muck, though. Like, he's been pretty much muck.
Yeah.
So,
he has.
R.I.P.
But
Everton and Dele Alli.
Yes. However, the one silver lining, the saving grace, is that Frank Lampard is back in a job like he should be, and he will steer them out of trouble. You can already see it. Just turned it on yesterday.
Yep.
Disposed of Leeds.
They were...
And
sorry, you go.
Yeah. I was just going to say, and people aren't going to like it, but Frank will do a job, and he'll silence the critics yet again.
Yeah. In all seriousness, Frank Lampard got a bit of a raw deal, and people will always say, well, he brought Derby from 6th to 6th, and he fucking couldn't bring Chelsea anywhere, and then Tuchel took over and won them the Champions League, and that's all fair enough, but people forget that for a season at Chelsea when he had nothing to go on. He had no transfer, he had lost his best player, he had to bring through all these young players that we had never heard about, players like Mason Mount, we had no idea who the fuck he was, players like James, the right back, players like Tomori, a couple of others, Abraham. He brought through all these players, and we were like, sure, they'll be doing well to get top half. And he got top 4. Top fucking 4. Like, in any Premier League season is good going with that group of players, considering you had Liverpool and City guaranteed top four. So you're fighting for two places against Man United, who were spending fucking $500 million in a couple of years, and Spurs, who had just, I think, been in the Champions League final. What is it, that season?
Yep.
And Arsenal as well, who are spending. All these teams. Brendan Rodgers, fucking lackluster Leicester. Oh, that was good.
That was.
Yeah, so like people shit all over Frank. He bought that Champions League winning team. Okay, he didn't have the experience to get them to win it, but he made that team. That was Frank Lampard's team, and it was just this Tuchel bollocks came in and fucking whatever hopped on the bandwagon, I suppose. So yeah, I think he gets a raw deal. He didn't have a great result during the week, but he went out and won 3-0 against arguably one of the worst teams in the league. Fair enough. He's still to win 3-0. He's got the likes of Calvert-Lewin back now. I think he probably does have a stronger squad. I think they do need a bit more in midfield, but they'll stay up. There's really not much of a question about that. There's way worse teams in the league. And Frank Lampard, is he the best manager in the league? No. But he might be the 9th best manager in the league.
But he's certainly the most handsome. I'll say that. And he is incredibly modest, I find, because he was offered, I guess, the Palace job back in the summer. But he knew it was a little bit out of his depth. So he said no. And he came back to try and basically piece together this mess that Everton have. So you got to respect him for that. And just to follow on from your point, I guess, Adrian, too, is that his Chelsea recently just won the Club World Championship as well. So that's another notch for him, as well as the Champions League medal. So, yeah, incredible manager.
Yep. Brilliant guy, brilliant player, brilliant manager. No comparison really with him and Solskjaer. No point in even comparing him. No,
I won't. But we will circle back on one small thing now that you kind of mentioned Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is Arteta. He was in that conversation many moons ago that we had, and I would like to say, and it's a shame Finn's not here because I feel he'd have his 2 cents on this too. But Arteta is doing an incredible job with what he started with. And I know this season didn't go too well, but he's doing an incredible job. And the final piece that he needed to, or final piece of the puzzle he needed to crack, or whatever you want to say, was Aubameyang. And he fucked him off. He got rid of the club captain. He shipped him off to Barcelona without a deal, said, you stay there, don't come back. And he got rid of all of the rut from the Arsenal ship. The ship is now brand new wood, perfectly polished, seaworthy, and ready for its maiden voyage.
Yes, absolutely. He has been low key one of the better managers of the season. Really, people talk about David Moyes for some reason. I maybe it's because he's British, but people love saying, Jesus, David Moyes in West Ham, unbelievable. Arteta came in to the season with arguably one of the best strikers in the league and chucked him out, and for all the right reasons, and fair play. If they get top four with the squad they have, I would say, could I say it's remarkable? I could.
Yeah.
Because
honestly, look at the squad.
Yeah,
look at Arsenal's team.
But you do have to look at their team and say, God, it's a shite squad. But they have bought that squad as well. Like, I mean, I don't know what the price of that squad is, but their net spend in the last few years is quite high. Mm-hmm. I think Arteta is going the right way about it, though. I do think the likes of Partey was poor enough, but then the right back, the Japanese guy, what's his name again?
Tomiyasu.
Tomiyasu. Yeah. Brilliant bit of business. Then they have that kind of mediocre midfield again, and fucking Xhaka just being Xhaka like constantly. And you know they don't really have an amazing striker, but yeah, I think Arteta. You know what? I'll give him a solid 6 out of 7 in terms of managerial rating. And I think they'll get top 4. I fancy them way above Spurs. I fancy them above United on current form. Yeah, I think Chelsea, Man City. I should put it in order. Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal is probably a safe top 4 bet.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that although others, it's quite close, isn't it, for the kind of 4th spot in the Europa League places? It's quite close when even Wolves are in the conversation. But you look at Arsenal's running, and it's probably the most favourable of them all. They do have West Ham and United to play towards the tail end, but for their next 5 or 6 games, they're playing teams that are struggling: Brentford, Watford, Leicester, Villa, Palace, Brighton, Southampton. Yeah. That could be the stretch that they, I guess, seal the deal. They'll definitely get back into Europe this year. They have to. They have to. I think that would be a really big success. I think it's incredible that they lost their first 3 games, and it's a bit of a joke. And they've only lost 7 games all season. So only 4 games since then, like 19 games. Look, it has obviously, there's been a checkbook involved. There's no doubt about it. But with what Arteta has brought in, has worked by, like you said, Partey. But he's getting the best out of what he has because he's just cut out all of the crap, all of the troublemakers.
The Leno.
And it's like a solid team. It's a solid team now that play for each other. Because look how important it was when they got that win against Wolves, and when Martinelli got sent off. How I don't think I've seen a reaction from an Arsenal team like that for so long. Go back to the City game as well, when there was all those controversial decisions that went against Arsenal. Very vocal, lots of expressions on the Arsenal player's face. It's refreshing to see. I like it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and they also missed out on that striker Vlahovic.
Yes,
which was a big dent to their title or to their season. But they've got goals all around the pitch at the minute. So I mean, your man Gabriel is banging them in. So if you can have a defender fucking scoring you 10 goals a season, who needs that cunt Vlahovic? So yeah, fair play. No, I think they're in a really good spot, and like you said, they have a really good run in. So we're all gunning. No, shit, no. We're all rooting for them. I was gonna say.
Well, gunning.
Yeah, I was gonna, but gunning for them means something else. So never mind.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Okay, well, look, we've given our plaudits to the great managers like Frank and Arteta so far. Special mention for Dean Smith, who seems to be working wonders at Norwich, but we won't dwell too much on that because Norwich. But yeah, let's flip the page.
Let's talk about shit managers.
Let's talk about shit managers. Anyone in mind, Adrian?
I've got one. No, okay, no, I shouldn't be too harsh, but I do want to address one Brendan Rodgers. So okay. I suppose there's this narrative going around that Brendan Rodgers made this Liverpool team. This Liverpool team is as good as it is because Brendan Rodgers made it. And Klopp just came in and basically did a Tuchel on it and just guided them to glory. Look, I suppose Brendan Rodgers is liked and respected amongst Liverpool fans. That's my understanding. I certainly like Brendan Rodgers and I certainly respect Brendan Rodgers. But he did some brilliant things at Liverpool. He also did some catastrophic things with Liverpool. And
Yes.
he's gone on to do some brilliant things after Liverpool and do some fucking catastrophic things after Liverpool. So I think the last time we were recording, I said I'd make a list of things. So let me just, this is in no particular order. I should try and clarify that. So some of Brendan Rodgers' highlights, right? He won some shit with Celtic when Celtic won everything, okay? Which was great. He lost the title for Liverpool in 2014. That's one of his probably career highlights. And he bought Felipe Coutinho. Those are probably three of... Oh, and he won the FA Cup last year. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
So those are probably four key highlights in Brendan Rodgers' careers. Things that Brendan Rodgers has done wrong, as I said, in no particular order. Very recently, he was knocked out of the FA Cup by Nottingham Forest in embarrassing fashion. They were 2-1 up versus Spurs in the 94th minute and went on to lose 3-2. We all remember that. That was only a couple of weeks ago. He oversaw the Cristambull debacle. And also the 1-0 loss to Chelsea that cost Liverpool the title. Steven Gerrard references his tactical naivety in his autobiography.
Interesting.
He was, this season, he was 3-1 up versus basically a second string Liverpool team in the FA Cup, and they went on to lose penalties. And they were knocked out. They were 1-0 up versus Villa and went on to lose 2-1. It's just it seems to be a habit they have. Last season, I had actually forgotten about this. Last season, they were tipped to get Champions League place, and they missed out on the Champions League because all they had to do was beat Spurs in the final day at home. Spurs that were managed by Ryan Mason. All they had to do was beat Ryan Mason's fucking Spurs at home, and they lost 4-2. Could you believe? 4-2 at home to Ryan Mason's Spurs. I'll just repeat that one more time. Ryan Mason's Spurs. They spent...
Zoom in. You definitely led into the mic, right?
Yeah, I did.
I like it.
He spent... This is great. This is going back to the Liverpool days. He spent 115 million. Or one Felipe Coutinho, if you want to give him some credit, but 115 million on Iago. I think his name is Iago Aspas. Anyway, Aspas, Ilori, if you can remember him, Balotelli, Ricky Lambert, Barini, Joe Allen, Luis Alberto, Lazar Markovic, and Christian Benteke. So, if you can remember any of those players doing any one singular good thing for Liverpool, then you're a real hardcore Liverpool fan. 115 million he spent on all those players. Not to mention, I mean, the obvious one is he's guided Premier League winners Leicester to like mid-table. I think they're 10th right now. Just with regard to the 13-14 season, that was solely carried by Luis Suarez. Because I know people will point to that season and say, well, he did brilliantly. I mean, if Suarez wasn't there, that's a 4th or 5th place Liverpool team. With Leicester, he's crashed out of a couple of favourable Europa League groups after terrible showings. He lost to Legia Warsaw and he drew the next season to Slavia Praha. Did I say that right? Slavia Praha?
Yeah.
And they were knocked out in the round of 30, the round of 32, after losing 2-0 at home.
Yep.
So, a lot to take on there. Basically, those are all examples of Brendan Rodgers bottling it. He's the biggest bottler in the Premier League right now. And I like the guy. I think he took Liverpool over at a good time, and I think he did some great stuff. But people remember that 13-14 season because we played some incredible stuff. He couldn't keep hold of Luis Suarez. He couldn't keep hold of Raheem Sterling. He got rid of Steven Gerrard. He made a lot of bad calls as well, and people forget how bad the Liverpool team was when he left. So anyone that wants to say Brendan Rodgers made this Liverpool team, have a look at Klopp's first team compared to Klopp's team now, and and then smack yourself in the face and get a grip.
Very nice. Very, very nice. That's a it's a very comprehensive list that you've had there. It's hard to argue it. I think the biggest takeaway for me when it comes to Brendan Rodgers is that he seems to just do this kind of cycle with every club that he's been at, where underdogs are not expected much of them, and he'll bring them up very well. He'll motivate them really, really well. Then things won't go their way. Maybe an injury or two will come in, or things won't go to plan, which is obviously compete at a high level. Then it's never his fault. It's always players not turning up, or not trying hard enough, or there's excuses here and there like schedules or COVID. And then he'll throw players under the bus. Then there'll be like a rift in the team. One star player will say some words, and then he'll walk away. And he'll disappear into the darkness for a little bit, and he'll come back. And let's not forget that Brendan Rodgers was probably in some fortunate circumstances in that 13-14 season. I think I could have probably got that Suarez, Sterling, and Sturridge scoring goals. Just give him the ball. Just give Suarez the ball. Like that. Exactly. That's some great management skill to have.
Yeah.
Give it to one of the best players in the Premier League right now to score. One thing that I always think of when it comes to Brendan Rodgers, because I try not to be too unfair on him, even though I really don't rate him that too highly. It's the two things of basically throwing away the Champions League spot 2 years in a row. Like that's pretty poor. But it reminds me of Steve Bruce. When Steve Bruce was Palace manager, this is going way back in 2001, 2002, for about, I don't know, a 6-month period, maybe less. Palace had Dougie Freedman, who's our director of football now, and Clinton Morrison, famously of Sky Sports and other places. And they just clicked. They always had a really good strike partnership going on from there too. But whatever happened, and I can't really remember what the squad was like, really. I can't remember who was maybe feeding them like the assists. It could have been like Hayden Mullins. I don't know. Do you remember Hayden Mullins by any chance?
No.
He played for West Ham and stuff. But we had Julian Gray, who was like an ex-Arsenal youth candidate too. But anyway, we just got like off to this fantastic start that by the time November came, they were just scoring for fun, and we were like top of the league. And we thought Steve Bruce was the Messiah. And all of a sudden then, come, I don't know, maybe November, December time, Birmingham City poached him, and he got promoted with Birmingham, who had like a superior side. I think they actually only recently got relegated, maybe. It was a great team anyway. And Palace just free fall down to like 10th because things just kind of came undone. But that first half of the season, like you wouldn't credit that to Steve Bruce. That's what Steve Bruce is doing. Like that was Dougie Freeman and Clinton Morrison being like fantastic players together. And I just think it's the same as with Brendan Rodgers. That Celtic team, they had no competition. That Liverpool team, he had the best front three that the league has seen. Maybe, best 1, 2, or 3 strike partners we've seen in the Premier League ever. And at Leicester then, he's had a blank checkbook and basically Jamie Vardy, who could score for fun. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And there's a couple of little bits that you can see. Like there's, I think on Facebook, there's a video of Brendan Rodgers' tactical analysis on one of his best ever games when Liverpool beat Arsenal 5-1 that season. and it's crazy. It's crazy to sit there, and if you can really focus, because it's so mind-numbingly boring listening to him. But if you can actually sit there and focus on what he's saying, it's like, yeah. So we played Luis Suarez because he was great. We tried to press the ball and win the ball a lot, and then pass it to Luis Suarez because he was great. And Raheem Sterling and Sturridge were fast. So when we won the ball, they ran really fast, and then we passed it to them. That's basically in a 5-minute segment what he says. Also, don't forget the Balotelli thing, which was another thing that came out kind of after he left. He had an interview and he said, "Look, the Balotelli thing was a bit unfortunate, but the club really felt that he could be a bargain." And I wasn't sold on it. He's like, I wasn't sold on this guy Balotelli. I really wasn't sold on him, but the club felt that he could be an asset, so they bought him, and they said, do what you can. It's like, if you're a fucking manager, surely you have the balls to say, do not buy him. I do not want him. And he's like, the club, and he's passing the buck on the club. Then look, maybe that is the case. If that's the case, then he has no balls to tell the club, I don't want that fucking player. And if it's not the case, then it's his fault for agreeing to buy the player. He's also recently, by the way, sorry, this is just the last thing. He's also very recently thrown players under the bus for being knocked out of the FA Cup to Forest, wasn't it? Yeah, and he said these players have no desire. I'm paraphrasing, but like I said, good guy, good manager. I think can do very good things. At Swansea, he did very well. At Celtic, it wasn't hard to do well. But let's see him go to United. Let's see him go to United and see how he actually does. I'd love it.
Yeah, same. Because I think he'd just be shown up for what he is. Like that's the one thing that always gets me, is that he has the same exit in every club, and it's probably coming to the end of his Leicester time, I would feel.
It is, yeah.
And it seems as if it's United that kind of are interested in him, but just this throwing players under the bus, being kind of seen as like shrewd transfers, not at all. He paid nearly 20 million for like Vestergaard from Southampton, for Christ's sake. It's just he'll be exposed yet again. I don't really have any particular hate or dislike of Leicester.
No,
but they'd probably be better off without him. I don't know who they'd get.
Yeah, I look. He's a top half Premier League manager. Not much better, to be honest. I'm not saying he's total dog shit, but he's not. He's not the Messiah that everyone thinks he is.
No.
Just touching on United, and I'm just curious what the story is with Ragnick. Is he just shit? Is that the story?
It's funny, right? Like Ollie was such a soft hand, right? He obviously kind of let things. He covered for players all the time. Is the Ragnick guy is he the exact same? I can't really tell, but he hasn't changed the course at all. I'm hearing a lot of, this is what we expected. There was no expectations this season. This is a transition. Bollocks. Bollocks. Every month up until Ollie was getting fired. Was it not? No, we have to go for the league, Champions League this year. Bollocks. Now the United fans are kind of easing off, being like, no, look, this is part of the transition. Is it fuck?
I cannot believe what a bad purchase Ronaldo has turned out to be. It's been incredible. It's really incredible. I was certainly so nervous about United this year. And now they've had this Solskjaer run that was pathetic, and they were getting hammered to fuck. Now they've brought in this really pragmatic manager, and has all these ideas. He's the guy. He's the guy who inspired Tuchel and Klopp. Did he fuck? My God, he is. It's so pathetic. Like, they go 1-0 up, and then they just concede another one. It's just constant. I've been watching your man. What's his name? Goldberg.
something?
Yeah,
Goldberg, isn't it? Yeah.
He is the best crack ever. I've been watching him every week because every week United have a shit result, and it's brilliant.
You know what? He does actually quite openly speak his mind about how bad he thinks United are, and I kind of respect him for that because a lot of people would like lose their cool, and he does. He obviously really hates it, but he doesn't hold back how he like condemns players and managers and the board and stuff too. It's good entertainment.
Yeah. It's really tough because if you ask me, what player do you bring in to fix United? Maybe, yeah, a defensive midfielder. Other than that, they should have a pretty good, not just a team, pretty good squad, and they can't fucking do it. And I was actually listening back. We mentioned at the very start of the season when Ronaldo came in, we were like, yeah, it's a really really good transfer, but it'll be very interesting to see how Solskjaer manages this team, how he manages the players, like the people, and he didn't. And now they've brought in this tough German fuck, and he hasn't managed either. Um, he was even approached in a press conference saying apparently the players aren't enjoying the fucking things and they're calling your assistant manager, um, what's the name of that? Ted Lasso. He was like, well, I don't know about this. It's like, get a pair of balls, man. How are you going to manage this group of players? Imagine Ferguson being asked that question. He'd fucking get up and walk out. He'd throw something at the reporter. This guy is going, well, I don't know about that. I don't listen to this. Listen, we have a lot of Man United supporting friends. So, like, it's a bit of banter. But at this point, it's a little bit sad. Like, it's a little bit sad.
Yeah, it is.
You kind of want United being a bit of a challenge so that there's a bit of competition there. But at this point, it's kind of... I don't see them getting back on track in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know either. I genuinely feel that, maybe the lads were right initially, where it's like it's the players. I think the players themselves are, they're obviously a part of it too, but you can argue that a great manager or a great club culture pulls bad players either out of the situation or through the situation too, and it's just not happening. It's just I can't comprehend it sometimes when I watch United and I see that lineup. And yeah, there's obvious holes in there that players could be better, obviously, but they're not a bad group of players. They just aren't a team. They're not a team, and that's the problem. Is that it seemed like things were getting together for United last season. They obviously did well last year, and it felt like there was a bit of momentum changing a bit. And yeah, the Europa League final loss was obviously a big kick. And if they'd won that penalty shootout, how different things could have been right now, who knows? But Ronaldo, I mean, for all of that's good about Ronaldo, and you see all this stuff about how hard he trains and how great he is for like charity and how much of an inspiration he is for other footballers, especially younger footballers too. I don't know. Yeah, look, that probably happens. But when I see him on a football pitch, he's the most selfish, self-centered person that like you probably ever see. It's just rolling eyes, it's throwing hands, it's getting frustrated. Like, that's what we see. That's what the fans are seeing. And yeah, he should be better. United should be better. But if he is so inspirational and like the younger players are looking to him, he just seems like he's another like negative ego thrown into the mix when you've got big influencers like Pogba, who God knows really where his head is at sometimes. And yeah, it's just drab, really. Like written all over it, that Burnley game and that Southampton game. Sometimes I wish I put my money where my mouth was, but you could just see it. You could just see it that like they're not winning this game. It's done. They've tried. They've got a goal. Sweet. That's what they always do, and they'll throw it away. Yeah.
Do you think Ronaldo and Cavani will be there next season?
If it's to be believed, Cavani's definitely gone. And if it's rumored to be true, Ronaldo's very dissatisfied with his spell at United.
Yeah.
I could see him going. And like, I don't even think it's a bad thing, to be honest.
But I wonder then, because I could see the two of them going, them and Pogba gone.
Yeah.
Who's their striker then? Like
But
they have
like,
to get one. And
yeah, and this is where you kind of have to look into like their recruitment, and it's been
yeah.
pretty poor in recent years.
And
You know, do they?
sorry, but yeah, there's a lot of talk about Haaland going there, but like, I mean, number one, why would he? Um, but
Yeah,
number two, why would he?
yeah,
Because like, wasn't his dad's career ended by a United player? Didn't his dad play for Man City? So why,
yeah.
it just doesn't add up for me. So I think
I
United,
know.
yeah, I think it's a dark few years for United, if I'm honest.
It could get worse. It genuinely could get worse. And I'm not just saying that to like, rattle people or to like, exaggerate. I think it could get way worse. There is like players like Shaw and Harry Maguire, David De Gea. They're in key positions currently in that United team. They don't, well, I suppose De Gea does, but they don't really have very competitive players to push them or overtake them if they, regress. And they invested a lot of money into these players. Like Harry Maguire is so shit, terrible every time I see him, and yet he's guaranteed player on the first name on the team sheet. He's club captain, and there's no one taking that spot. And you'd have to spend a lot of money to try and get someone that's like better than him that would uproot a
Yeah.
club captain. I don't know.
He could be one of the worst transfers of all time, if I'm honest. I know that sounds really
Yeah,
incredibly harsh, but for the money involved, like 80 million?
yeah.
80 million? People laugh at Torres. Like, Torres at least scored some goals and won some stuff. 80 million for Maguire, who's gone on to win nothing and will win nothing. It's Jesus. It's abominable, to be honest.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one thing that I think that can kind of always hold against United and United fans is that this mess is not for the want of trying. Like it literally poured millions into this team in all the wrong areas, and have nothing to show for it. Longest drought without a trophy now, unless United win the Champions League or miraculously the Premier League, it will be their longest period in recent like history
Mm,
since before Fergie, without a trophy. And like that is accurate, I feel.
yeah.
Well, I think we touched on it earlier actually because we got to United on the topic of shit managers, and we mentioned on the top David Moyes. Right, football aside, David Moyes is a terrible manager because of how he handled the Kurt Zuma situation. How he started that game after what he did is it's ridiculous, really. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. It's a tough one because I see where he's coming from. I do see that he's like, listen, I'm the fucking manager. I just pick the team. I pick the team that's best
Hmm.
to play, right? And if you think Zuma is the best centre back to play, pick Zuma, right? But I think it's more reflective of West Ham as a club that someone hasn't gone to him and been like, listen, there's all this shit with Zuma. Keep him out. Just put him away. Keep him out. Keep him away from the stadium. Let him stay at home. We're gonna deal with it. We're gonna fine him. Whatever. Just you've got because they're not really short on centre backs either. Like they have a few. So like just start Diop or whatever. Whoever. Um. So I think it looks way, 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 way worse for West Ham. To play him than necessarily David Moyes because like he kind of said, my job is to just pick the team and train the team and do tactics and all that kind of shit, and I just deal with what's in front of me. It's not good though, and I mean, I mean, I'm sorry to say I do think it will blow over, and I think it is blowing over. I think he's been fined now, and his cat has been taken away from him, and I think that's going to be the end of it. But I think it's going to leave a bad taste in a few people's mouths going forward that West Ham played him like the day after it all kicked off.
It was just, sometimes you got to think like, okay, what's the sensible thing to do here? Whether or not it had been handled internally and all that, that's fine. I trust that an organization as big as West Ham has like disciplinary procedures in place. Like, of course, it's just like you said, maybe sub him, maybe put him on the bench. Anywhere else than literally starting the next day. It's like as if it doesn't really matter. And I think it kind of leads me to my next point too. And I won't ever be able to do this any justice that hasn't already been said, really. But the frequency in which professional football players, especially in the Premier League, have like become criminals or have criminal records, it's getting a little bit worrying. I mean, we could really dig into this deep and find out like reasons why, and I think a lot of them are very obvious why they happen. But even like now, Zuma was one, right? Okay, and maybe that's on the, not that you can rank them, but maybe it's on the kind of minor side of the current criminal proceedings that are going on with Premier League football players.
Yeah.
But like this season alone, there's been two, Basuma and Greenwood, that have been charged with sexual assault.
Yeah, and Mendy and
Mendy
Sigurdsson.
too. Yep. Yeah.
So
there you go.
You're up to 5.
Yeah. And that's only the current. And like I say, I don't know if we're very much in a position to add to anything that's already been said about those kind of ongoing cases. But if you look back further, there's a lot of players, like well-known players, that have had criminal records or been involved in criminal activities. And yeah, is it just the concoction of young, talented, ego, lots of money that just results in people like this? Because it is only like there's thousands of players in the Premier League history, and it is a fraction of those. But like, is there a worrying trend, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
I have thought about this a little bit, and people will say, look, when you give like a young man who's in good shape, because they're usually fit or tall or bulky, and like if they were in a secondary school, they'd be like the jock. They're like a big guy. They'd probably be a bully or whatever, just based on physique.
Yeah.
You give this kind of guy so much money that he doesn't know what to do with it. What do you expect? Of course he's gonna act out. Of course he's gonna be a Balotelli. I mean, fucking Balotelli was an angel compared to these guys. Of course he's gonna act out. But like, can you say, okay, you give a young, testosterone-driven, like jacked up kid so much money, of course he's going to go out and kick cats. Of course he's going to go out and be a rapist. Like, that doesn't add up to me. That doesn't make fucking sense. So these guys going out and assaulting people, fucking kicking cats, like raping people, it's like, that's not down to a money thing. Like, they had that in them before they were rich. I believe that, because I believe, well, I fucking well hope that if someone gave you or me this amount of money when we were 20 years old, we wouldn't become a rapist, or we wouldn't go out and batter the heads off people. Why would we? I think Rooney came out recently and said that he turned to alcohol, and of course that's a huge thing, is that they've got so much money they don't know what to do with it, so they're gonna go for drugs, they're gonna go for alcohol, they're gonna go for betting, they're gonna go for things that like you probably couldn't afford as much of if you're poor. But like, Wayne Rooney went and got pissed a few nights and probably acted out a little bit. as far as I know, I don't think he sexually assaulted anyone, because it's probably just not part of his DNA. And while you can say, well, he was a fucking idiot and he got pissed and he did this and he did that, you know, he was never gonna rape anyone. Give him €1 billion, give him 10 trillion euro. He's not gonna rape anyone because he's not a fucking rapist. Someone like Greenwood, or allegedly Greenwood, or Mendy, they had that in them. Whether you give them money or not, they had that in them, and that's the scary part. And I suppose when you look at footballers, I mean, I don't know how many footballers there are between all the leagues that we would support or follow or whatever, but like in the Premier League alone, I suppose there's 20 teams with 20 players. What is that, 400 players? 5 of them, 4 of them, I suppose now, if you want to count it, are I don't want to be so blunt to say they're rapists, but they have been accused of something like that, and that is way too much. That's like 1%. Like, I would fucking hope that 1% of the population is not capable of rape, but maybe it is. It's scary. Like,
it is very, very scary.
I do think that, well, they're young and we give them money and they don't know what to do with it. That's bollocks. That's fucking bollocks, and I want to cut that out right now.
Okay.
Not cut it out of the podcast. I should clear it. but,
no.
But I don't think. I think it's making excuses for these guys who are just fucking animals. Frankly.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's a good point. It's a good point. It's true. It just seems to go hand in hand, and it's very prevalent in sport, unfortunately, as well. Like, we, at the top of the podcast, for those still listening, we would have spoken about the Super Bowl. The NFL is like crazy for convicts and stuff. Even just like little misdemeanors. It's like every other week there's someone from a team being suspended for DUI, like drinking under the influence, or taking drugs, or assaulting someone, or rape, or battery. All these crazy things happening. And there is a little side segment to the NFL side of things where it's like about the head trauma that they've got for a very long time. But America is on a different level, I think, when it comes to like, offenses like this. The Greenwood one, I mean, I do see myself as kind of hardened to like shock, if that makes sense, where there isn't too much that I could see or watch or hear that would really like set me back and whatnot. That, like, watching that on like the Sunday morning or whatever it was when it finally kind of came out, was, man, it really did knock me. I had to sit down. Like, that was just, I don't know, like, it was a lot. I really can't see it going any other way other than his arrest, rightly so. I know you have to play it safe or whatever and say that he's innocent until he's proven guilty, but I'm sorry, I think I've seen all the evidence I need to say or see to say that he is, very, very guilty. And yeah, just really kind of hope the best for his partner. And one of the things I didn't understand, and you might be able to clarify it for me, Adrian, is the fact that he was arrested in November. Did you hear that? And Manchester United were made aware of that?
Yeah. I don't know anything about it, but I think you highlighted it a few weeks ago that did happen, but I guess nothing came of it, or I don't know.
And I think it circles back nicely. I've said that a few times in this podcast, but it does really circle back nicely to the same thing as West Ham, where, of course, these are very different crimes and very different outcomes, really, or the effect it's had on people. But it's the image, it's the clubs not really caring too much. It's more about just, we'll let him play. And I don't think he's been in the squad too much, basically, with this year anyway. But the fact that perhaps it was known, or perhaps there was rumors, or the police said the reasons for his arrest, and it was kind of okay to keep it going, keep him playing, or keep him in the squad. is again a concern. Same with Mendy too. Mendy was playing football while it was being reviewed. Before it was going to
Yeah.
trial.
Yeah, like
They
they
acted,
would have they would have been aware of the allegations at that point. Like,
yeah, yeah. So big question marks over a lot of the football teams too. And I don't just think it's United. I don't think it's City. I don't think it's West Ham. I think it's basically majority of them, because money talks and money is the most important for them, and sponsorship is the most important for them. So not throwing those three clubs, any more hate than I would for anyone else. But yeah, it was quite shocking. And going back into the catalogue, not to glorify anything, but really just to provide some context into how frequent this is in football. We just to throw out some famous names. Joey Barton, convicted twice for assault. He was in jail 7 months combined. Danny Simpson, remember Danny Simpson from Leicester? He was assault. He got a curfew and had to do community service. Eric Cantona, maybe that one's a little bit different, but he did get a 2-week sentence, which was changed to community service for, that kung fu kick. Ched Evans, convicted of rape, 5 years, which was then overturned after he served 2 years. Do you remember Lee Hughes, West Brom player? By any chance?
not clearly, no.
Okay, well, he was a pretty good striker, kind of bottom half Premier League, top half of Championship type player. He got 6 years for death by dangerous driving, killed someone. Adam Johnson. I mean, that's probably the biggest one before Greenwood, right? It's probably the most well-known one.
Yeah, and it felt like that was more of a deal than what's going on now, which is crazy because
Yeah.
like why?
Yeah.
Why is that more of a big deal just because it was whatever 10 years ago?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
And what Adam Johnson did is obviously horrific. It's awful, and he deserves as long behind bars as the legal system or the justice system deems fair, I guess. But he was hounded. Like, he had cameras in his face. Like, the whole trial was live on Sky. Maybe it's legal stuff. Probably is, but there's nothing on Greenwood. It's completely shut down.
Oh, or Sigurdsson, who we haven't seen anything from in a year. Like, get a camera in that cunt's face.
And maybe it is to protect the victims, to make sure that there is a fair trial, to bring justice. I understand that too.
Sure.
But
yeah.
there's big distinctions here. Just a few more to really nail it home. I don't know if you remember Marlon King, probably best known for Watford, but he had a string of convictions. Fraud, criminal damage, like breaking into someone's property, handling stolen cars, 2 counts of assault, and sexual assault and assault that led to bodily harm, and he got 18 months for that. Crazy stuff. Just then, other than that, Noel Ranger. Do you remember Noel Ranger from Newcastle?
Yes.
He committed 8 months in jail for fraud.
Yeah, he was a nutter altogether, to be honest.
He was. He still is. Looking outside the Premier League, 2 names that kind of stuck out to me. Patrick Kluivert, causing death by dangerous driving when he was with Ajax. And Gus Hiddink, tax fraud. So, yeah.
And just not to, I don't know, falsely accuse someone, but what was the story with Ribery? Was that a prostitute thing?
That's the thing. Those names there are the ones that were convicted, set in stone.
Right.
Yeah, as in
found guilty.
Found guilty and not handled out of court.
Yeah.
But there is so many. Benzema, Ribery. Didn't Ribery and Benzema an underage girl on distribution of videos and photos of it too?
I think there was something very fucking dodgy there,
and still playing nothing happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fucking toxic culture, man. I don't accept the money as
Yeah.
an excuse.
I really dragged. I think that's very fair because it's an easy one to fall back on because like it always is one that kind of like draws my mind away, and I think it has an influence. I definitely do think it does because it's positional power. You hear that a lot, right?
Yeah.
That positional power thing, and that's just looking at the Mason Greenwood one. Like the things he was saying and the actions he was taking is because
Yeah.
untouchable, for want of a better term,
Yeah.
is he felt untouchable, and again, not to shit on United, but the Man United crest on your jersey when you're driving around, people wanting to take pictures with you, like posters and shit, and advertising boards with your face on it. I think it gives you some of that positional power.
Yeah. No, I know, and I know rich people. God, I don't even like saying it, but rich people don't like to be told no. But like a human being should be able to know when to fucking stop. Like, I mean, okay, like, you want a latte in a shop and they say, well, we don't sell lattes here. You can kick off whatever. But like, if you're asking, you're someone for fucking something and they're saying no, and you're saying, well, I insist, like, then you're just a rapist.
Yes. Yeah. You wouldn't expect it from like a toddler or a young child.
Do we have to put like a trigger warning at the start of this episode? Because
Kind of.
kind
of. Yeah.
Some of this is grim shit.
Yeah, it's a bit of a downer, but I think it's important things to talk about. Though
I think
it is
so.
like
yeah.
It as people who obviously enjoy football, and we do very much take the piss out of a lot of football, and we're obviously very fond of football too. But there is a very, very serious and dark side to football that we've seen come to a head, especially in the past few years, with a lot of prominent players and big players. And yeah, it's uncomfortable to speak about this stuff, but as two men, so I think it's our responsibility as well.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
All right.
Well, I think that concludes where we were, all of the things we were hoping to speak about today. I know it was a bit of a downer, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's I'm sure we can cut it there. We'll cut it there. Good night. God bless.
Thanks for the tip.
Thanks for the tip.
You've been listening to the Put 'em Under Pressure podcast. For more of our content, make sure that you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Facebook. Outro music.